So, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
So, with your kind permission, sir, let us start our this new edition of our occupational health and DigiConnect webinar. That is our Enoch DigiConnect webinar. And before we start, sir, this is the 44th issue of our DigiConnect webinar. And I would request our president, Dr. Gajendra Kumar, sir, to give the welcome address.
Good evening, friends. Today is our 44th issue of our DigiConnect webinar. And again, today the topic is very important, air pollution and lung cancer. And we have got a very good speaker with us, Dr. Manish, and we had an opportunity to listen to him in our previous series as well. So I welcome you, Dr. Manish, and I welcome all the participants into this webinar. With these few words, I now hand over to Dr. Sandeep to proceed further.
Thank you, President, sir. So, good evening, Dr. Manish, and to all the participants. So, this is our 44th issue of this Enoch DigiConnect webinar series. And for your kind information, Dr. Manish, we are having it every Saturday at about 6:30 p.m. And we have been conducting it every weekend for the last about 7-8 months. And actually, last time we had a very good discussion on lung cancer and role of targeted therapy by one of the eminent speakers. And what we came to understand that lung cancer is a very typical sort of tumor, and the symptoms of lung cancer, they are also very much delayed. And until unless the location is such that some obvious cough symptoms or respiratory distress symptoms, they appear early, or some hemoptysis occurs. Otherwise, the symptoms are very late when the tumor is in advanced stages. And regarding the epidemiology and etiological factors also, we have discussed that it is caused because of the family history or the poor diet or the occupational exposures, especially from asbestos, metals, silica, polycyclic hydrocarbons, diesel exhaust. And what we discussed last time, that air pollution is also one of the major risk factors. And you know that we at AUSD, we are focusing both on occupational health and the environmental health, because in our industries, the environment is well controlled. Everything is within the threshold limits. So our workers, they are not exposed too much on a chronic basis with these sort of carcinogenic agents. But the air, as Dr. Rajiv Jain, sir, our senior vice president, he pointed out that air pollution is one of the major risk factors for lung cancer, especially in never smoking women living in several regions of Asia and India. And this includes the coal burning in poorly ventilated houses, the causes, and the burning of the wood and other solid fuels as well, and the fumes from high temperature cooking using unrefined vegetable oils such as rapeseed oils. And he also mentioned that Indian Oil Corporation, we have started this Ujjwala Yojana, in which we have delivered cylinders free of cost, and LPG is all this wood and coal burning is replaced by the LPG gases. So I have discussed with our management also. We'll be shortly conducting a study on what is the improvement on this because of this. So Dr. Manish, sir, we would like to have some expert opinion regarding air pollution and lung cancer, and what are the in addition to the targeted therapies and the advanced treatments, how we can diagnose this cancer as early as possible, so that in early stages it can be managed, and we can give a long and better life to the patient. And for the information to all the participants regarding Dr. Manish Kumar Singhal, he is senior consultant in medical oncology from Indraprastha Apollo Hospital, New Delhi. And the topic for today is disease awareness, air pollution and lung cancer. So we have bifurcated this whole series in multiple sections. Today, air pollution and lung cancer will be discussed. And Dr. Singhal did his MBBS from Seth GS Medical Oncology, KEM Hospital, Mumbai, and MD in Internal Medicine from PGI MS Rohtak. He got his formal training in medical oncology from DM from Apex Institute of All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. During his tenure, he was selected as trainee at Oriel, Oxford University, UK, and Barbara and Carnamos Cancer Institute, Detroit, USA. His expertise spans in all type of chemotherapies, intensive protocols, immunotherapies, hormonal therapies, in addition to dealing with the oncological emergencies. His ardent interest is in academics and keeping up to date, and he has been awarded with ESMO by Best Exam Award at ESMO, that is European Society for Medical Oncology, in 2013. He is also executive committee member of Indian Society for Medical and Pediatric Oncology and joint secretary for the National Capital Region for Oncology Forum. And he holds deep interest in breast cancer, lung cancer, and gastrointestinal cancer, and lymphoma, leukemia, and myeloma. And in addition, above everything else, he is one of the good friends of us and always a guide whenever we are in need of regarding our any patient, or if we want to learn something about the treatment methodology or any other requirements. So Dr. Manish, we are glad to have you, and you can share your screen. You can address.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I hope I'm audible enough, and very warm welcome to everybody. And it's always a pleasure to be on board of OcuCon and its online portal through which we are able to connect to everybody. And I hope my screen is also visible.
Yeah.
So as Dr. Sandeep has just alluded to, that we'll be talking about lung cancer and of course air pollution. And air pollution has recently become very important. The media, the print media, the other media, both medias covering air pollution quite left, right, straight. I think things have not really improved despite much public awareness and governmental awareness. The air pollution problem still continues. So I think it is very important for us to understand how does this air pollution affect us. And when we talk of air pollution, we are not only talking of outdoor air pollution, but also indoor air pollutions and their impact on health. So there are a set of questions which come to my mind, and these questions have been proposed over here because this is the feedback that I get whenever we discuss air pollution with learned people, that there are a lot of myths around air pollution, use of air purifiers, etc., etc. And I think our understanding, despite being a hyped topic in the media, it's still quite undermined. So I think how many believe that air pollution is a problem? That question is quite answered, that the fact that we are listening to a subject like this, we know that it is a problem. And we also understand that enough has not been done to combat it. And we also understand that air pollution can cause lung cancer. But let me just ask that, what is the PM 2.5 and what is its safe upper limit? So if I'm allowed, Dr. Sharma, sir, what is the PM 2.5 and what is the safe upper limit as per WHO? Or whosoever you think is, what is the safe limit of PM 2.5?
Dr. Rajiv, sir, he'll be the better person to
guide. Dr. Rajiv, sir. So what is the upper limit, safe upper limit prescribed by WHO for particulate matter 2.5?
I think it is 50.
It is 50?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll see. It is actually 10. Oh. The WHO describes it as 10 micrograms per cubic millimeter. So what is the highest PM 2.5 recorded in Delhi, sir? I think anybody can answer this.
It is more than 400.
It is more than 400. Actually, the highest goes up to 999.
Oh my God.
And we can't measure it beyond because the machines have been calibrated to 999. That is the reason you get that figure of 999.
Oh my God.
And today it is around slightly better. It is 250 because some wind is blowing outside. And unfortunately, we are dependent on the wind. We need to blow the wind from the minds of our great politicians who need to think about it and create a better environment for us to live. How many think that it can cause untimely death by heart attacks and stroke? Anybody can take this question.
No, yes, definitely.
Definitely, yes. So many people think that air pollution से heart attack नहीं होगा, stroke नहीं होगा. सिर्फ lung cancer हो सकता है, COPD हो सकता है, सांस की problem हो सकती है, but heart attack and stroke नहीं होगा. Very recently, I was, in the gym, and one of the members came that they had a member who was a very fit guy and used to do very regular gymming and was a gym instructor, and he died of a sudden heart attack at the age of 48. मैंने बोला भाई वो जब जिम करते थे तो क्या वो एयर पोल्यूशन के लिए कुछ मेजर्स लेते थे? नहीं पता, वो तो बड़ी बढ़िया रनिंग करते थे और वो तो सर्दियों में भी और गर्मियों में भी सब जगह रनिंग करते रहते थे. That is one of the reasons, because when you are doing aerobic exercises and you are inhaling all these pollutants, it can predispose your body to heart attacks no matter how fit you are. It is like smoking so many cigarettes a day. Yeah. And that is the reason it causes untimely deaths by sudden heart attack. All of a sudden that otherwise very fit guy, muscular guy, gym instructor fell off and just died for no reason. And
Manish, I got a question at this point.
Hanji sir.
Hanji. See, you told that the upper limit is 10 as per WHO standard. Is there any place on this planet where it is less than 10?
फिनलैंड में 10 है. आज आप गूगल करके देख लो. फिनलैंड में, स्वीडन में, डेनमार्क में it is around 10, 11, 12. And I'll show you the data, sir. I'll show you the data. I have all the PPTs with me. I'll show you New England Journal of Medicine publications, which shows that it should be 10, and there is a linear relationship. So all that evidence is, I have brought all that evidence to you. So what have you done, sir, to protect yourself from air pollution? In your own individual capacity, government तो जब जो करेगी सो करेगी, but आपने अपनी individual capacity में what do you think you have done to protect yourself from air pollution or your family from air pollution?
I think people are wearing masks, especially N95. That may be.
कोरोना की वजह से पहन रहे, pollution की वजह से तो किसी ने नहीं पहना.
Yes, it is because Corona, but N95 is at least, I think, is giving some relief.
Yeah. And what is your theory about air purifiers? I'm not talking of the propaganda, the marketing propaganda and all, but what is our concept of air purifiers? Many people think, sir, I was talking to Rohit Sardana, who is he's an anchor on Aaj Tak, and he's a good friend of mine. He says that air purifiers से immunity कम हो जाती. I told him that particulate matter से कोई immunity नहीं होती. It is a carcinogen, and it is not a matter of immunity. That means if you smoke more and more cigarettes, you are going to become more and more immune to it, so it will not cause any problem to you. So you smoke more. So it is not a matter of immunity. I think air purifiers is posed on us now because the type of environment that we are living in. We require air purifiers so that at least 12 hours, 14 hours, whatever you are spending in a closed environment, at least that time you are inhaling a better air rather than a worse air. Many people think that indoor PM 2.5 is much better than outside. So it is only on the road that particulate matter is there. But I've got an individual air monitor with me. And honestly speaking, the difference between outside and inside is just 50. If outside is around 300, inside it is 250 or 275 or 260. Still, you are inhaling much more polluted air than otherwise. So I am very paranoid. Once I started researching on it, I became very paranoid about air pollution. So this is a sequence of my presentation, how it all started. What is the demographic effects and statistics? What is the knowledge of common air pollutants? What is the IARC stand on air pollution? That is International Academy of Research on Cancer. Health impacts, indoor air pollution, publications on Indian air pollution in various leading journals such as Lancet. Of course, we'll talk about lung cancer and, as I always do, one case study. So how it all started, I started reading on air pollution in 2017 when the record-breaking toxic haze blanketed the entire New Delhi. And this not only prompted many schools also closing up and the cars piling up and flight delays and so on and so forth, so much so that the American Delta Airlines and United Airlines said that we will not be landing in India for at least till the time the haze is off. So इतना ज़्यादा हो गया, इतनी ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम हो गई, that was the time that we started realizing, and it came in the newspaper. I started reading about it, that what's the truth behind it. And then I started reading on the WHO website, and it says that 9 out of 10 people worldwide breathe polluted air, and it is responsible for 4.2 million deaths every year. These are all premature deaths which are happening, and 91% of the world's population lives in poor air quality. So India is one of the areas which is affected very severely, and of course, that is the reason why we are discussing this. Not only this, household air pollution is also quite significant. And if you look at the Southeast Asia where we live in, it is responsible for ischemic heart diseases. It is also responsible for strokes, even responsible for lower respiratory tract infections, that's mainly in children less than 5 years, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, and lung cancer is just a small problem actually. So many people die because of ischemic heart disease, strokes, and COPD rather than lung cancer. Lung cancer is just one of the things that one can get affected with because of air pollution. So this is a very important slide. This is what, one can just remember. So lung cancer, 30% of total lung cancer deaths is because of air pollution. 24% of deaths because of stroke is because of air pollution. That is why we call it an invisible killer. We don't come to know. Young man just falling to death for no reason, all of a sudden. It can be heart disease, and the responsible cause, at least in 25% of the people, will be air pollution, which we don't even realize. And 43% of lung cancer deaths lung diseases such as COPD. So I was asking one of the health policy makers, I don't remember his name, and there was a discussion on this subject. And I asked him that, we put odd even Dobara and all that stuff, and we see large photographs of our beloved CM of Delhi. Why don't you put this picture on? Because this is all WHO, this is all proven in literature, everything is there. Put this as a picture so that people get afraid. At least people are aware that, all these deaths are happening because of air pollution. Why even odd even Dobara or something like that? So, but of course, perhaps nobody wants to understand, nobody wants to let others understand that this is what is happening because of air pollution. So air pollution ke baare mein sabko pata hai, but I don't think that, there is actually, we are doing enough to combat this nuisance. So as I said, that 80% of urban residents are exposed to air pollution across the world. And of course, in India, we have extreme limits of it. So all the human activities can cause air pollution, such as fuel combustion of motor vehicles, heat and power generation, oil and coal power plants and boilers, industrial waste, such as manufacturing units, mines and oil refineries, municipal and agricultural waste sites and waste incineration and burning can result into waste. Residential cooking, as Dr. Sharma also said, heating, lighting, and all polluting fuels can cause air pollution, and it contributes. The first and the foremost is particulate matter, 2.5, because it poses a great health risk because it can penetrate through the blood and enter the bloodstream and cause plaque formation and cause so many other things other than it being a known carcinogen in addition to everything else. So the combustion of energy, household fuels, everything, ceramics, bricks, everything causes particulate matter to increase. Not only this, even road traffic and even dust particles and construction dust can also result into increased PM 2.5. Black carbon is a major component of PM 2.5, and it is a short-lived climate pollutant. And it is, despite its very short atmospheric lifetime, the black carbon can also result into, is one of the largest contributor of global warming after CO2. Ground level ozone is another air pollutant which is responsible for many problems, breathing problems such as asthma, reduced lung function, respiratory disorders, and the major sources of this particular is motor vehicle exhaust, industrial facilities, and chemical solvents. Nitrogen dioxide is also responsible for respiratory infections, reduced lung functions, and growth. And evidence also suggests that nitrogen dioxide may be responsible for large disease burden, which exposure linked to premature mortality and morbidity and cardiovascular diseases. Sulfur dioxide can aggravate asthma, chronic bronchitis. That is the gas which causes irritation in the eyes, and is also can combine with water and cause sulfuric acid, and which is main component of the acid rain. Carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless, and although high concentration of CO is more of a concern indoors, but definitely it has long-term and wide range of health effects. And many sources of ambient CO is from motor vehicle exhaust and machinery that burn fossil fuels. So International Academy Agency for Research on Cancer has labeled that air pollution is a known carcinogen to humans. It is not a possible, probable carcinogen. It is a known carcinogen to humans, and it is listed in group 1, and say that there is sufficient evidence that exposure to outdoor air pollution causes lung cancer. There's sufficient evidence. There is no plus or minus in it. So as I said, that it is responsible for not only lung cancer, but also strokes and heart diseases, heart attacks. And it also impacts not only adults, but children. So it is very important that the longer the duration that children get exposed, the early premature deaths will happen in our country. So we are talking of India, but now let's talk about European countries. And it is a European study cohort where we generally think that the air pollution is much, much better. And just imagine that, sir, I'll just read out this. You just pay attention to 5 microgram per cubic millimeter of PM 2.5. Based on all these studies, the WHO decreased the PM 2.5 from 25 microgram per cubic millimeter to 10 microgram per cubic millimeter, because it showed that with every 10 microgram per cubic millimeter increase, the hazard ratio to die of lung cancer increased. And we are talking of Europe. Mind you, sir, I'll let you know that when they have a PM 2.5 of 50 or 55 or 60, वहाँ शोर मच जाता है कि the air is very polluted. और हमारी tolerance देखो, हमारी तो 300, 400, 500 की tolerance है. So even over there, when it reaches 50 or 55, 60, 70, they start making noise in their community that the air is very polluted. You must do something about it. So this is a New England Journal of Medicine paper which was published in 2017, and it is air pollution and mortality in Medicare population. As the PM 2.5, if you see this graph, the topmost graph, with every increase beyond 10, there's a linear relationship with hazard ratio to die of any disease. So with every increase of 10 microgram per cubic millimeter of PM 2.5 and 10 parts per billion of ozone, all-cause mortality kept on increasing. Linear relationship in the entire Medicare population. Not only this, another paper, 2009, Fine Particulate Matter Air Pollution and Life Expectancy in the United States. It says that a reduction, if you reduce the particulate matter air pollution, contributed significant and measurable improvement in life expectancy. Again, very linear relationship. So it is clear that every 10 microgram per cubic millimeter decrease in particulate matter results into increase in life expectancy. And with every increase, of course, the life expectancy decreases. All these are published in New England Journal of Medicine papers. So it is definitely very much evidence-based. And based on these data, the WHO took a stance that we must decrease the required PM 2.5 from 25 to 10 micrograms per cubic millimeter. So indoor air pollution is another major cause because of non-ventilated houses and coal burning, as Dr. Sandeep Sharma has already alluded to. And unfortunately, providing clean fuel for cooking is very important. Unfortunately, in India, a very small population is still using clean cooking oil. Many people are still dependent on various things such as coal, charcoal, wood, dung. And if you look at Southeast Asia, a major population, 60% population is using wood or dung to use for cooking. So that's actually very sad that we have not been able to provide clean fuel for cooking to a vast majority of our population. This is household air pollution and deaths. So if you look at this red, the last part of this bar, South Asia, there's hardly any decrease in the amount of fossil fuels or the air pollution. There's a very small decrease that you see over here in Southeast Asia, whereas there is a sharp decrease in North America, in Western Europe, where in 1990 people used to use the household air pollution used to lead to premature deaths, but this has really not decreased in Southeast Asia very much. So of course, in the developing world, we are still struggling that people should not be using all these stuff to have indoor cooking. There should be definitely better fuels available. So again, this only highlights the same thing that India is still struggling with indoor and outdoor air pollution both. And whereas many countries, their indoor air pollution has actually decreased quite a lot, but their outdoor air pollution they're also having some challenges. Whereas many countries have been able to combat this problem quite successfully. And this only shows that there is a strong relationship between air pollution and various diseases, lung cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases, respiratory tract diseases, tuberculosis. All these have strong relationship with air pollution, and there is sufficient evidence about lung cancer and COPD and acute infections with lower respiratory tract infection because of air pollution. These are various publications of Lancet, which describes that that world population which are living over 10 microgram per cubic millimeter of WHO air quality guideline. As I said, that is 10 micrograms per cubic millimeter. There is increase in the risk of deaths. And it is not that US was always clean, but the Clean Air Act was passed in the US in somewhere in 1983 or something, where it made necessary that we have to provide clean air. And there was a resolution that Clean Air Act is a right to every human being who's living in their country. And that is the reason the norms for strict air pollution control was laid. However, we don't have any Clean Air Act in India so far. But I think we need to have more political will to do that. So this is an article again in Lancet, which was published, that the government indifference over air pollution crisis in Delhi. So it says that, the London's highest reading is 69, whereas our highest reading is crossing 999. And anything which exceeds 300 is said to be dangerously high level of pollution. Whereas the Indian authorities were asked to have more strict control and have to incentivize clean energy sources. And despite bans, they say that 35 million tons of agricultural waste is burnt in Punjab and Haryana. So Delhi is a big and complex policy. As I said, that Lancet Planetary Health actually published this, that we will not need a wind blowing stronger, but rather a combination of public pressure, scientific and technical work coordinated with policy efforts across multiple agencies to make a strong national leadership to combat this particular problem. Again, a publication in Lancet, New Government and Global Plan, it did corroborate that there were various plans which was laid. Metro and various flyovers which are made are also done to combat air pollution only, so that there is less of piling up of traffic. But these are certain things which have been, I just brought out these papers just to tell you that our air pollution is being discussed in journals like Lancet because it is related to health. Now, coming to lung cancer and Indian scenario, definitely we know that lung cancer is a global burden, and the graph, unfortunately, is increasing. Lung cancer is going to be the most common cancer that affects men and women. And the Globocon data says that the annual incidence of lung cancer is rising quite sharply. So this is going to be the future problem, and lung cancer is here to stay, because I don't see any easy solution to various problems that we see. We can control smoking, but unfortunately, our efforts to control air pollution is definitely not showing any major results. Thankfully, it is also known that those patients who do not smoke or get lung cancer because of perhaps air pollution, they have higher chances of having various mutations. So lung cancer today is not just about adenocarcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, or large cell carcinoma. It is actually about various mutations. And EGFR mutation, the KRAS mutation, the ALK mutation, the HER2, the BRAF, the MET. And honestly speaking, we have drugs against all of them now. Very recently in ASCO 2020, this year, the KRAS, against which we never had any drug, a new drug was approved and it became an NEJM publication. very recently, about 6 months back, that the new KRAS inhibitor has been detected. And now we have a drug which can target the KRAS, which is a very common mutation seen in smokers and in otherwise lung cancers also. So we definitely have a KRAS inhibitor now in place, which can inhibit the KRAS and can get very remarkable responses in lung cancer. Other mutations such as MET, at this point in time, I'd just like to brief you that at Apollo Hospitals, Indraprastha Apollo Hospital, we are doing a clinical trial on MET inhibitors. So we have got a drug called as capmatinib, which is a product of Novartis. And anybody who has a MET mutation in lung cancer, which is seen in about 3% patients, we will be able to give the drug totally free of cost, and it's part of a clinical trial. So the capmatinib has recently shown very remarkable results in patients who have MET mutations in lung cancer. And as I said, that we are running a clinical trial, wherein the patient can be enrolled totally free of cost. They don't even have to pay for anything, not even the drug and hospitalization, nothing. So, so all these inhibitors are coming in a big way, and they are resulting into remarkable responses. These are all mainly tablets and very easy to take and have very little side effect because they are targeted therapies and they don't have any collateral damage happening to normal cells. The risk factors for lung cancers are, of course, air pollution, tobacco, occupational exposure that has already been alluded to, such as asbestos, silica, heavy metals, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons and diesel exhaust and all. Radon is one thing. And of course, certain genes can also be responsible for having lung cancer. There's no one simple symptom. I think the dictum is not to ignore any symptom. So if you have a symptom of persistent cough, which is not going for 3-4 weeks, you have never had that, shortness of breath, unexplained tiredness and weight loss, coughing up blood, chest pain, all these symptoms should not be neglected, and the rightful investigation should be done, at least a basic X-ray. And if X-ray is suspicious, it's better to do a CT scan of the chest to see if there is anything sinister cooking up. So it's important that we must do rightful investigation and not ignore our symptoms. But there's no one symptom which will say that, okay, this is lung cancer. So obviously the symptoms of lung cancer will be very similar to symptoms which any other disease which affects the lung. So routinely we do sputum cytology, needle biopsies and bronchial brushings and bronchoscopy to get enough tissue to prove whether it is lung cancer or not. Many times patients are mistakenly diagnosed as tuberculosis, and they keep on taking anti-tubercular drugs for long, and their disease keeps on progressing. So never mistake any lung mass or any pleural effusion as tuberculosis unless you have done adequate amount of histopathology or cytology and you are sure that it is not lung cancer. Based on staging, stage 1 is when it is still in the lung, it is usually less than 5 centimeter and has not traveled into the lymph nodes. Stage 2, generally it will travel to the local lymph node, that is hilar lymph nodes. In stage 3, it generally moves into the mediastinal lymph nodes, then it becomes stage 3. And stage 4 is when it spreads to other parts of the body. And usually it is either bone, liver, adrenal gland, or brain. For stage 1 and stage 2, it is generally surgery followed by chemotherapy, and very rarely you do radiotherapy, adjuvant radiotherapy. Whereas for stage 3, when it has moved into the mediastinal lymph nodes, the treatment is chemoradiation and not really surgery. Very rarely you will do surgery. But for stage 4, it is chemotherapy or targeted therapy or immune checkpoint inhibitors, something like that. So depending on which subvariety of lung cancer it is, you do only systemic treatment and not do any local treatment in form of radiation or surgery. So that is the dictum of treatment. Unfortunately, most patients are detected almost 80 to 90% in late stages, that is stage 4, because the symptoms start occurring only when the problem has increased too much. Only if somebody is really very lucky, they will be detected for early stage. Yes, it is true that there is a lung cancer screening program which has been approved by authorities, and that is for smokers. Generally, those who have more than 20 pack years history of smoking, that is more than 20 cigarettes a day for 20 years. These patients can be exposed to low dose CT scan of the chest, and it has to be done annually once for 3 years. And this particular lung cancer screening trial, we call it lung cancer screening trial, this resulted into decrease in lung cancer mortality by 20%. And this was again an NEJM publication, which changed the way we look at patients who are at high risk of developing lung cancer. So key points to remember is that it is the second most common type of cancer in men after prostate cancer. By 2020, it is projected that the annual incidence will be very high. And of course, there are two major subtypes, and we know that there are many subtypes of lung cancer. The major risk still is smoking, but exposure to air pollution, diesel burning, coal, and asbestos, heavy metals also results into this particular disease. Diagnosis is very important, and it should not be mistaken with any infectious disease. And the treatment is based on lung cancer and is based on the variety of lung cancer and the stage of lung cancer. And usually stage 4 is treated with a combination of chemotherapy, targeted therapy, or immunotherapy. Last part of the discussion is the case study of one of the real case. This is about a 50-year-old gentleman who was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer, stage 4, adenocarcinoma, never smoker. And as I said, he was a very fit man and used to do a lot of running. And he was started on chemotherapy at an outside hospital, and he received 6 weekly doses of chemotherapy, but he worsened. And he came to me for second opinion, and he was rendered a second opinion. However, the treating oncologist declined to follow my opinion. And this was a time he spent more time doing another biopsy and trying to see whether there is any mutation or no mutation. Finally, he came back to me, and he was quite breathless when he came to me, and required a lot of oxygen support and had to be CT and the tumor on the right side with pleural effusion. An X-ray of the chest was done, and it showed that there is fluid in the lung, and there was large opaque lung mass, and there were multiple small numerous nodules, which was suggestive of lymphangitic spread. So we started this patient on bevacizumab and pemetrexed and carboplatin. It was a triple drug combination. And this protocol was picked up from 2 studies which were published, which was Point Break study and EverPearl study. And within 10 days, his X-ray was better. And on 21st day, he was, just before his second cycle, he was oxygen independent. He was walking, climbing stairs comfortably. His X-ray showed miraculous improvement, and the effusion disappeared. So these are the pictures. As you can see that if you can just appreciate these small multiple dots, this is lymphangitic spread. And you can see that there is a large effusion and there was a large lung mass on 7th of 11, 2020. We started his treatment, and within 10 days, you can see that these small dots have started becoming better. The effusion has disappeared or started disappearing, and the mass is shrinking. And within 21 days, you can appreciate that these small nodules have almost disappeared. The effusion is no more there, and the lung mass has shrunk by almost more than 50%. So it is very important that the science is practiced in the right manner, and the evidence in literature is practiced in the right manner. And no half-hearted weekly type chemotherapy is given for a young male like this. We did whatever is given in the book, and we had a remarkable response. That too in a patient who was taking chemotherapy but not responding. And in fact, his disease was increasing. So we just did what is given in the book, and if you follow the book, you are never wrong. With that, I thank you for your kind attention. There was a med page which said that die like a dog. And it actually meant that dying like a dog is better, because a patient who is suffering with cancer and has got incurable cancer and has no other therapy available, euthanasia is not allowed in men, but is euthanasia, that is mercy killing, is allowed in dogs. So it actually was in a sarcastic manner that die like a dog. We usually mean dying like a dog means that it is taken in a bad sense. But I think living in a polluted country and a polluted city like Delhi is something which is not warranted. And I would say that we would not like to die like a dog, because that's something that needs to be brought up. air pollution should not be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Manish. This was really an eye-opening session for all of us. And before I open the floor for the panelists, I would request you to further elaborate what can be done at various levels. As you have told that every one of us is ignorant about the harmful effects of the air pollution, although like in Delhi, every year we face all this air pollution because of this parali burning and other things, and the other like traffic pollution and other things. So what can be done at individual level? Like one thing is you told that you can use air purifier, or you can, during this corona times, we are using this air masks. What else can be done at individual level?
Sir, many people think that, planting and putting a lot of plants will be helpful. But I must tell people that, tell everyone that plants cannot filter out particulate matter. It can filter out gases, but not particulate matter. For particulate matter, it may decrease the density of particulate matter a bit because the particulate matter is, if there is a dense forest, it may not come inside easily. But for particulate matter, we have to have cleanliness. At least आप road side की dust, आपके घर के बाहर की जो dust है, उस पर पानी छिड़क सकते हो, timely उसको दबा सकते हैं, या वहाँ पे grass वगैरह उगा सकते हैं, या उसको concrete कर सकते हैं, so that dust ना उड़े. I think we all need to contribute a bit. We should get our cars checked for air pollution at the right time, not just pay off 100 rupees and get an air pollution certificate, so that somebody doesn't catch us on the red light, or a Mamu doesn't catch us. So I think we need to be specific with ourselves and, for the environment, and we should be careful with the environment in all our individual capacity. That is what I can think of. From an organizational perspective, Indian Oil and everybody they are very big organization. They can request the government that there should be, strict policies of controlling air pollution. And there should be a representation from Indian Oil and higher ups that this is something which needs to be dealt with, because the future that we are giving to our children is very poor. What is going to happen to our children? Don't we have responsibility towards our children that we must give them clean air to breathe? That is the basic thing that is required for any human being.
So definitely these efforts will be taken care of by every one of us. And at community level also, you told that we should be more mindful about the air pollution, and especially at association level, like we are association of...
many times, sir, I see that, these guards in the winter season, they are burning wood to heat them up. So at least on the community level, you can tell them to provide them heaters, electric heaters and all, rather than they are burning wood in your community. So if you take into account that everybody is burning, and the guy who comes to clean our roads, he will, collect all the patta and then start burning it. So we must make policy that burning of all this bio waste and everything should not be done. It should be strictly banned, and we should take cognizance of the fact that it is adding to air pollution. So if all of us are strict, and if we are part of our RWA or anything, we should make it a point that no, this is something which is very serious, and we should not be asking our guards and everybody to burn biowaste.
And at association level, we should advocate all these initiatives now. And
yeah. So maybe, you can put some placards of the placard that I showed you, one of the slides, where air pollution is contributing to heart attacks. People think that air pollution is only leading to COPD. जिसको अस्थमा है उसको चिंता करने की जरूरत है, जिसको अस्थमा नहीं है उसको तो चिंता करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. But we must understand it is leading to heart attacks, untimely deaths because of heart attacks, strokes and everything. Not only just lung cancer also.
Right, and that will only help the policymakers to listen and pay heed to the air pollution. Although they are doing things, but still a lot of mass movement need to be there regarding air pollution, especially.
Yes, sir.
Before we start with our all panelists, may I request all the panelists to raise their hand? There is a raise hand option. So you can start, we can start the questions with you all, sir. And there's one question from Dr. Puneet Chandna, our...
I can read that in the box.
Box. How would you rate the risk and incidence of pneumoconiosis, silicosis, and hypersensitivity pneumonitis to be due to occupational exposures? Where would you place this risk as harm of the like LDCT to be a primary screening in high-risk patients?
So I think it's a very important, very exciting question. Unfortunately, we don't have any level 1 evidence for prescribing a low-dose CT scan for patients who have been exposed to silicosis or have pneumoconiosis or hypersensitivity pneumonitis. But definitely these patients are also have higher risk of developing lung-related problems and including lung carcinoma. So the study was done only in smokers, and it was for patients who have more than 30 pack years history, which was late after a certain while because of various permutation, combination, and statistical models. It was decreased to 20 pack years history. So as of today, we can only prescribe a low-dose CT scan for a person who has got 20 pack years of history, not to anybody else. But as I said that, yes, the data is, there is a logical reason to prescribe it to those who have occupational exposures and have higher risk of developing such malignancies. He has also asked a related question to this, that where do you place the risk versus the harms of LDCT? So low-dose CT scan of the chest does not really pose a lot of harm, because in that particular study, the cancer risk or the risk of dying of cancer because of early detection of cancer decreased by 20%. So risk of dying decreased by 20%. So I think low-dose CT scan of the chest doesn't really pose a lot of radiation exposure. At least in that study, you have a protective effect of it. The only problem that came in that study was unnecessary biopsies. If you have a small nodule, how do you approach it? And doing a small biopsy of a small lung lesion can be risky and tricky. And then sometimes you miss the lesion and you're not able to target the lesion, and it can cause some procedure-related problems. So that problem was there, and also it gives you anxiety to the patient that whether I'm affected or not affected, and how do you follow up if there is if the biopsy cannot be done or biopsy is very risky or tricky. So this was a problem of that particular study. But then, of course, whenever you do a study, there is obviously, there are certain problems of the study. Also, there are some benefits of the study. And he has asked one more question, that how many of...
Sorry, there were many questions from my side. So then you can wait to answer the others in case, and then come back.
Yeah, okay.
No problems. Yeah. I think Dr. Gajendra needs to ask here.
Yes. Please, see, I got a statement to make, my observation. Because of this wearing of mask, what we have noticed in our center, especially for acute exacerbation of asthma, bronchitis, common cold and cough, sinusitis, the number of these cases have reduced dramatically, especially this year. So if the effect is because of the wearing of mask, so definitely it is, this is what my feeling, and I need your expert comments. Will it also going to affect for the incidence of tuberculosis or CA lung in near future?
So possibly yes, but it is not easy to wear a mask all the time. We know that we are struggling to wear a mask now, and
yes,
wearing a mask is just part of the solution and not the complete solution. So to religiously wear a mask at all the times, honestly speaking, sir, you'll be surprised to know that I had been wearing masks during the winter seasons, even before Corona. And it was an anti-pollution mask, because once I started reading about it and I was so very convinced that it is going to lead to problems, I started wearing an anti-pollution mask whenever I was outside. Fortunately, I'm at Apollo, so there it is a centrally air-conditioned environment. So our particulate matter concentration in the OPD area used to be around 25 or 30. So PM 2.5 in the OPD area used to be 25, 30, because I used to measure it with my machine. But in the common corridors and the patient wards, it used to be around 80 to 100. And outside, it used to be 250, 350 or whatever it was. So, but I used to wear a mask even in those days, not that I'm just wearing the mask now.
Right.
Okay, Dr. Rajiv Kumar Jain.
Thank you, Dr. Manish. You have actually collated a wide variety of resources during your presentation, underscoring the multiplicity of effects that air pollution causes on human health, especially in South Asia. The Institute of Health Metrics data, which focused on South Asia specifically, not Southeast Asia, is very reflective that we as a country have failed ourselves in looking after our own environment. And not only that, we have ensured that the future of our children is shortened, especially in North India, by at least 10 years. Initially, you had mentioned about air quality. I find a very useful application, Air Matters. And what I do is I see the worst 10 countries in the world in the last 24 hours, and I see the 10 best cities in the same application. And at the moment, it is showing the worst 10 cities in the world for PM 2.5 is number 1, Dhaka. Second is mainland China, Xi'an. Third is Kolkata. Kashi in mainland China is number 4, and Delhi is number 5 at the moment. And Noida is number 6, New Delhi is number 7, and again China, and Gurugram is number 9, and Ulaanbaatar in Mongolia is number 10. Can we imagine out of 10 cities, 4 cities are Delhi and around? And this is global ranking, worst PM 2.5 in the world. Now, if I go to the best, I find like this is within the range of 351 to 330, all cities. And surprising data comes. The best air quality in the last 24 hours, number 1 was Toulouse in France, Bogota in Colombia, Masterton in New Zealand, San Diego in Costa Rica, Marseille in France, Luxembourg in Luxembourg, Oslo in Norway, Milan in Italy, Rome in Italy, Wellington in New Zealand, and Tirana in Albania. These are the top 10 best cities in the world. And this keeps on changing. What is important to know this is that we know in real time that these cities are the so-called best cities I've also seen. They become worse at some point of time. So they do not remain the best all through the year. Similarly, Delhi also and some cities in China also crossover to better in terms of air quality at other times of the year. So it's a very dynamic situation. That is what I wanted to underscore, that static data of air quality to actually give you the real score of the problem that we have. The question that I have for you is, lung cancer is a result of a multiplicity of factors. And as you mentioning, air quality is one of them. Won't you feel that lung cancer as a disorder should be correlated more aggressively with air pollution? Because in the recent past, unfortunately, only smoking has been related. And in the height of anti-smoking campaign, the contribution of air pollution has not been highlighted that much. So won't you agree with this, that we need to aggressively push air pollution as a cause for lung cancer?
You have to unmute, Dr. Manish. You're not audible, Dr. Manish.
Unmute.
Yeah, I've been able to now. So yes, sir, there's no doubt that I can tell you very simple, my own observation. So when I was at All India Institute of Medical Sciences doing my DM, Dr. Vinod Raina was our HOD. And he used to say that, yeah, lung cancer patients ko mat dekha karo, unko bhega do. Because there was hardly anything that we could contribute to. There's hardly any increase in the life expectancy. So, 6 months without treatment, 10 months with treatment. So there we have too much workload of acute myeloid leukemias, acute ALLs. So you just send them across to Safdarjung Hospital. In 2009, sir, the targeted therapy scenario came in, and he said, now we have to start treating lung cancer. So he started the lung cancer clinic. And at that time, sir, when we published our literature and our data of lung cancer clinic in 2011, Dr. Prabhat Singh Malik, who is associate professor over there now in AIIMS, he was my junior. He published his results in American Society of Clinical Oncology. And that time, 90% of the patient had a smoking history. 88.5% had smoking history. 10.5% had no smoking history, and or light smokers. So now when we look at the current data, 30% patients do not have any smoking history.
Right.
So that 10%, 12% has become 30%. So now if I ask what has made this 10% reached almost 28, 30%, let's ask that question, that smokers के अंदर अब lung cancer क्यों नहीं हो रहा है, या फिर non-smokers वाले बढ़ गए? Of course, non-smokers वाले बढ़ गए, because this is all attributed to air pollution and nothing else. In 2020, the incidence of never smoker lung cancer is about 30%. दूर दूर तक कोई smoking history ही नहीं.
And this is also reflective of our failure as a policy for agricultural development in Punjab and Haryana.
Yes,
the whole crop pattern has changed. 20 years back, if you see the crop pattern, and now you see last 10 years, it is very, very different. And that has led to this situation. And Delhi is bearing the maximum burden because of population density.
बड़ी सोचने की बात है कि जहां पर धान जलाई जा रही है, जहां पर एग्रीकल्चर वेस्ट जलाया जा रहा है, वहां तो पार्टिकुलेट मैटर और भी ज्यादा होगा.
Very true.
It must be affecting the health of the villager also, the health of that farmer also, and his family as well. So why can't he understand that it is affecting his health and his children's health also? He is ready to sacrifice 10 years of his children's health and still burn the agricultural waste.
That's why the Air Quality Commission, which has been set up by Supreme Court and Government of India, they are focusing on financing these two governments for setting up, for actually giving cash to the farmers so that their waste could be taken and they do not lose money, because it becomes a financial issue for farmers, the survival. Unless that is done, I don't think the Punjab government will be able to ever bear the expenditure for direct benefit transfer to the farmers who continue to burn every year. In fact, twice a year this cycle goes on. And if you go and drive on DT road via if you Ludhiana to Jalandhar and Amritsar, you can realize. Yeah, true. Thank you so much.
That will be taken care of by the policy makers, but we as association, we have a great role to play. What we came to understand from today's webinar, that we have got a great role to play for public awareness and for the awareness of the doctors and individuals. Dr. Shyam Pingle, sir. Dr. Shyam Pingle is our past president and member of the International Commission on Occupational Health Board member. Yeah, Dr. Pingle, sir.
Yeah, thank you and very good evening. It was a very nice presentation, Dr. Singhal. And I have a couple of comments and a small question for you. I've been working in the area of climate change for the last 5 years and air pollution specifically for the last 3 years. So, and by now everyone has realized, and it is well accepted, that it is not only the malignancy, but also the heart problems, neurological problems, and pediatric problems are directly related to pollution, and there is a direct causation for that. Now, we are all willing to do a lot for screening of cancer cases, but in general, people are not willing to do much for pollution. So not only protecting ourselves from pollution, but what is more important is how can we reduce the pollution, how each one of us contributes to it, and how it can be reduced at various levels and various areas. And the question is not very simple. It is very complex. There are socioeconomic reasons, and now politics has entered into it. So it is state versus state, and a lot of things have come into that. And now this, the agitation on Singhu border, I don't call it farmers' agitation, the agitation of interested parties, I will call it. So that kind of things have further complicated this matter also. Anyway, so coming to my question, Doctor, have you seen any geographical distribution of lung cancer cases in India? I'm asking this question because you gave a very interesting statistics that the lung cancer in non-smokers has increased from 10% to almost 30%, 28%, which is a very important thing and very relevant thing. That so many non-smokers are coming into it, and pollution could be a very important cause in that. Now, since you said that the pollution would be at different places, we know already where how much pollution is there, that is known because of Central Pollution Control Board and other things, and a lot of measurement is going on. But is there a geographical distribution of lung cancer cases that you see? Whether Punjab, Delhi, UP, or I mean, whether it is more in the areas where there is pollution more, or where it is something like that. So is there a trend which is visible, sir?
So thank you for that question, sir. It's a very relevant question. My answer would be very biased because there's a referral bias to Apollo, and I will be doing, because I'll be seeing my patients only at Apollo. So there will be a definite referral bias if I quote something which, because this has to be corroborated. It definitely requires more of a, proper study where more patients flock from different parts of the country and different parts of the cities. So I generally see patients who, because our main workload is coming from Delhi only, and not really from very distant parts of the country. So our catchment area is the UP belt as well as the Delhi patient, the localized patients. So I would say that the entire North India belt or the entire Ganga belt is exposed to high levels of pollution. So I don't see any. Not to say that Uttarakhand se patient lung cancer ke saath nahi aate. So even Uttarakhand supposedly the air is cleaner, but I definitely can vouch on one thing, that we see more younger patients coming from the Delhi NCR or metros, and those patients who come from Himachal Pradesh or Uttarakhand or hilly areas where the air is definitely better off, there the age of incidence of lung cancer is lesser. Is higher. That means if they get lung cancer at say 70 years of age, we are definitely getting 30 years, 35 years, 40 years of patients with lung cancer. So age distribution is changing, definitely changing. This is what I can definitely vouch for, that patients coming from relatively cleaner areas, they get their disease much later in their life, whereas you get much younger patients, or maybe 2 decades earlier, in patients who are living in cities.
Thank you. That's very interesting information.
So it is becoming a lifestyle disorder now.
Yeah. So, sort of lifestyle.
Yeah. Dr. Tyagraj, sir, from Bangalore. Dr. Tyagraj, you have to unmute yourself.
It gives us immense pleasure, sir, to discuss about today's webinar, which is more concerned among environmentalists and also most discussed and challenging in our day-to-day life as occupational physicians. Our Sandeep ji has systematically set the ball rolling. Sir, your discussion is very, very good. I just wanted to give some information that at least North Indians are really have some guts to resist some of the things, whether it is a political or apolitical, whatever it is.
Maybe we can just...
In our area, we get once in a week water, drinkable water, we get once in a week. And now there are 40,000 apartments are vacant in our Bangalore. And we don't have drinking water. At least once in a week we are getting. If the 40,000 is filled up, I don't think even if they can, government can supply once a month also water. But they are giving so many licenses to build the houses. This especially, apart from air pollution, we are having a very, very difficult for our groundwater. We don't have. Every house has got a borewell, but nothing is helping us. And you have anything regarding our ground level water, sir, which is from your side?
Dr. Manish, unmute yours. Yeah.
Sorry, sir, can you just repeat the question?
See, sir, in Bangalore, which I am speaking from Bangalore, we have in the olden days, about 100 and 150 years old, we used to have two beautiful gardens built by this Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan. You may be known that in Bangalore we have Lal Bagh, a very vast region of Lal Bagh is there, and we have a Kabban Park is there. But today we are having 40,000 apartments are vacant. And today our drinking water we get once in a week. We are getting once in a week. And we are having everywhere in the Bangalore, apartments are coming. This ground level is so much so. But what I'm congratulating North Indians, at least they have got some guts to resist against the government. They do. And in South India, we don't have. You may be seeing that no strike, no farmers agitation, nothing is there. So we are actually, in fact, if we continues, we may get water once in a month, and that is drinking water. So about the air pollution, you have talked about the groundwater level. Will you say something about this one, sir?
So, my knowledge about groundwater would be very limited. I've never really researched on it. But definitely, there's no doubt. In general, we can say that the next crisis that the human race will face is about drinking and clean water only. And so there is no doubt about that. We do have a technology of converting seawater into drinking water. However, it's a costly policy. One of our tenants in one of the flats was a water expert. And he says that we are able to change seawater into drinking water at 50 paisa per liter. But 50 paisa per liter is still very costly. So they are trying to make it even cheaper of converting seawater into drinking or accessible water at 25 paisa per liter. So once that technology is in, then I think even Dubai, or for that matter, UAE also converts the seawater into drinking water. They don't have any natural resources of water. But that's a rich country that can convert seawater into drinking water because the population is smaller. But for a vast population like India, we got to have a technology which is much more cheaper. And maybe if it reaches 25 paisa per liter of conversion from seawater to drinking water, then perhaps it can meet the requirements of the general public. So we got to have a technology of converting seawater, because water crisis is going to be one of the major crises hitting human race. As a matter of fact, I was reading some articles which say that water may be another reason to have a world war.
Thank you very much, sir.
So, Dr. Manish, one last question from our Q&A box. Is there any inexpensive instrument to measure indoor and outdoor air pollutants?
Of course, there is. It's not very expensive. The air monitor that I have is about 10,000 rupees. I don't think so that's very expensive, but there is definitely cheaper versions available on Amazon, etc. And I think 2,500 rupees is the cheapest thing that you can get to measure air pollution. And it can give you within 1 second the amount of PM 2.5 and PM 10 that one is inhaling. Almost instantly. As you switch it on, you'll get to know. It's like a pulse oximeter.
Okay. So Dr. Ashish Vijay Jain and Dr. Sriniket Mishra, if you have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, I'll conclude because it's almost 1 hour. Dr. Manish has spared for us. Dr. Ashish? Or Dr. Manish, you have rightly said that this air pollution, and especially as Dr. Tyagaraja has mentioned that water problems, these basic needs, they will be the greatest problem in near future for all of us. And like air pollution, it causes lot of diseases, and especially the lung cancer and the, even as you rightly said, cardiac problems also. So a lot need to be done by all of us, especially all at our medical level, at our association level. We have to do a lot of things. And once a person gets is suffering from cancer, especially lung cancer, because right now, as you rightly said, a lot of targeted therapies, immunotherapies, and other therapies, they are now available. But in corporates, many of these therapies, they are not in the medical policy, medical reimbursement policy of our organization. So in that case, as I have already discussed with you, that we'll form a committee of our doctors, so that various specialists, so that we can come out with some solution, that how we can get an affordable therapies, especially targeted therapies, or newer drug carrier systems, or theranostics, or any other latest advances of chemotherapy, or radiotherapy, or some like theranostics. So, or we can give some ceilings for that, because right now the treatments are very costly. So if some ceiling can be given to us, like this much can be like reimbursed to the patient, or this much can be paid by the company. So some guidelines we would require for that. And especially this lung cancer, this topic was very important, and that is the reason why we have taken in 2 sessions. And you have very well explained the causation of the lung cancer because of the air pollution. And you have rightly explained to Dr. Ajit Jain sir and Dr. Pingle sir also that yes, air pollution is causing cancer, and now that it has increased up to 30%. And we should not attribute lung cancer to only smoking or to the occupational exposures. This outdoor and indoor air pollution is one of the major cause of this this lung cancer, and we have to work for providing affordable chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and theranostics to all our employees and our workforce in case they suffer from lung cancer or similar type of illness because of air pollution. So thank you, Dr. Manish. We have got a small certificate for you, which we'll send you by email. This is the only token of respect we can afford right now. This was issue 44, and we have been working for our workforce and for our people and all our association members, so that they can learn something during this COVID times with new working norms, and they all should not feel isolated. And it has given us a lot of opportunity to connect with each other. Right now, like you are addressing people from Bangalore, Mumbai, Gandhinagar, at many places. So Dr. Puneet Chandna, he has got a lot of questions, but we'll discuss it sometime on 1:1. Also, you can.
No worries. I can catch up with Dr. Singhal sometime. No problem.
Yeah. He himself is a molecular oncologist, and
oh, wow.
definitely, and he is our life member, and he's working on genetic.
I did the FGFR3 discovery for the lung cancers at TMC. I'm from the Kumar Prabhash team.
Oh, wow.
All right. But now placed in Delhi. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to listen to you. It was a great presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Any specific question, Dr. Puneet Chandna?
Nothing, based on something what Dr. Sandeep said, I was just curious. There is investigational, therapy called as the photodynamic therapy, which usually the interventional pulmonologists are, working upon. So do you think it would be as a first-line treatment anytime? besides navigational?
Sir, photodynamic therapy is nothing new. It has been practiced for many years. So basically you give a photosensitive agent to a patient, IV, and that gets concentrated into the tumor area as well as the other parts of the body, and then you throw the photo light on the tumor area, and you get some extraordinary benefit in that particular area. This has been tried for esophageal cancer, for bronchial tumors, but I don't think so that it is likely to become a mainstay of the treatment. This has been practiced for quite some time, but only in very select patients it has resulted into some real benefit. So as of now, if there is any new breakthrough therapy, something which is happening with a better photosensitizing agent, and then photodynamic therapy is resulting into some real improvement, I'm not really sure. But then it is generally used for tumors which are accessible by either bronchoscope or by endoscope, where you can throw that light and you can give a photosensitizing agent. But nothing really very exciting on that account, what I know.
Great, right. Thank you very much. That was all the thing.
So thank you, Dr. Manish, for joining and sparing your valuable time.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks to all the participants for sparing their valuable time for this webinar. And definitely it was a very enlightening, and it has really gave us a lot of leads how we should act at individual level, and at community level and association level, and as a doctor. So thank you, Dr. Manish. Thank you very much. And thanks to all the participants.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.